Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight we're diving into something a little different. No warriors, no emperors, no conquest and bloodshed. Instead, we're stepping into the quiet, intimate world of Roman women and their evening beauty rituals. Specifically, we're asking a question that might seem simple on the surface, but actually reveals something fascinating about how ancient people understood beauty, health, and the power of nature. What natural ingredients did a Roman maiden actually use for her evening skincare? Because here's the thing, when we think of ancient Rome, we think of marble statues and perfectly sculpted faces. But those perfect faces, they were created in bedrooms and bathing chambers with ingredients pulled straight from the earth, the garden, and the pantry. No synthetic anything, no chemical laboratories or mass-produced serums. Just women figuring out, through generations of trial and error, which natural substances could transform their skin, keep them looking fresh and youthful, and help them feel beautiful. So stick with me as we uncover the beauty secrets of Roman maidens. Because honestly, what they were doing with olive oil, flowers, and milk thousands of years ago is hitting different in modern times. Before we get too deep into this, if you're into ancient history, beauty traditions, or just weird glimpses into how people lived their lives, hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments where you're from and what your evening skincare routine looks like. I'm always curious how people across the world approach their nighttime beauty rituals. Now, dim those lights, grab something comfortable, and let's ease into tonight's journey. Because Roman beauty rituals were an art form, at the heart of every Roman maiden's evening skincare routine, standing like a silent guardian of beauty, was olive oil. This wasn't some fancy imported luxury oil. This was the foundation, the base, the thing that made everything else work. In Rome, olive oil wasn't just food. It was medicine, it was wealth, it was beauty itself captured in a bottle. Roman women understood something that modern skincare companies are still trying to convince us of today. Your skin needs moisture. It needs real, deep, penetrating moisture that reaches beneath the surface and doesn't just sit there like a plastic layer trapping everything underneath. Olive oil did that. After a long day of exposure to the sun, dust, and the general chaos of Roman life, a maiden would begin her evening ritual by warming a small amount of olive oil between her palms. The warmth was important. It wasn't a random luxury. Warmth helps oils absorb better into the skin, opening pores, inviting the nourishing properties deep into the layers where they actually matter. She'd massage this oil across her face in slow, deliberate movements. Forehead, cheeks, around the eyes where the skin is thinnest and most vulnerable, down to the neck and décolletage, where age shows itself first. Roman women weren't naive about aging. They knew the skin on the neck and chest betrayed a woman's age far more than her face, so they treated it with the same care as their cheeks. The olive oil would sit there, being absorbed, sometimes for hours before bed, sometimes longer. There was no rush. Evening skincare was a ritual, not a task to be hurried through between other obligations. Some maidens would leave the oil on overnight. Others would gently wipe away the excess with soft linen cloths, knowing that a little oil left behind would continue working while they slept. The genius of olive oil for Roman women wasn't just that it moisturized. It was that it did so without clogging the skin, without leaving a greasy film that would trap bacteria or cause breakouts. In a world without antibiotics or advanced dermatology, preventing infection was crucial. Olive oil had natural antimicrobial properties. It protected as it nourished. Over time, consistent use of olive oil created skin that glowed, that looked plump and youthful, that had a kind of luminosity that no amount of powder or paint could fake. And because it was so affordable, so widely available, even women who couldn't afford the expensive exotic imports could have beautiful skin. Olive oil was democratic in that way. A slave woman using the same oil as a senator's daughter. Both could achieve that same coveted glow. But olive oil alone, while transformative, wasn't the only weapon in a Roman maiden's evening skincare arsenal, because nature offered so much more. Roses, for instance, weren't just beautiful to look at or pleasant to smell. They were serious skincare ingredients. Rose water, created by steeping rose petals in water or distilling them, was a staple in the beauty routines of Roman women with access to it. Rose water had properties that seemed almost magical to ancient users. It was astringent, meaning it helped tighten and tone the skin. It was cooling, which felt wonderful on warm evenings after a day baking in the Mediterranean sun. It was also subtly antiseptic and calming. If a maiden had any redness, any irritation, any general inflammation from the day's activities, rose water addressed it all. The most luxurious versions were made from damask roses, flowers that required patience and skill to cultivate. A woman who could splash rose water on her face each evening was displaying not just her wealth, but her connections, her access to the finest gardens and skilled perfumers. Rose water would be applied with soft cloths, or even poured into a basin and used as a rinse. The ritual of it was important. Standing before a mirror, perhaps lit by oil lamps, pouring fragrant rose water over her face, watching it drip down her neck, the smell enveloping her in luxury and elegance. This was more than skincare. This was a moment of self-care in a world where women's lives were often constrained by duty and expectation. The simple act of tending to one's beauty, of claiming a moment for oneself, was quietly revolutionary. For women without access to expensive rose water, there were alternatives. They'd gather petals from whatever flowers grew in their region and create infusions at home. Cheaper, yes. Less potent, perhaps, but still effective, still luxurious in their own way. And the act of creation, of making something with your own hands, added another layer of meaning to the ritual. Milk was another cornerstone of Roman evening skincare, and Cleopatra's legendary milk baths weren't just the fantasy of later storytellers. They were based on genuine understanding of how milk works on skin. The lactic acid in milk is a gentle exfoliant. The fats in milk are deeply nourishing. The proteins help maintain skin's elasticity and firmness. A Roman maiden might not have had access to milk baths, depending on her status and resources, but milk was such a common household item that almost anyone could use it for skincare. She might dip soft cloths into fresh milk and apply them to her face as a compress. Leave them there for 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes while the milk worked its gentle magic. The coolness of the milk was soothing. The smell was comforting, familiar. By the time she removed the cloths, her skin would be softer, brighter, and that subtle feeling of renewal would linger as she prepared for sleep. Some maidens mixed milk with honey to create a paste, a mask that would be applied to the face and left to dry. The texture would tighten slightly as it dried, then flake away gently, taking dead skin cells with it. Others mixed milk with crushed almonds or papyrus powder for a gentler exfoliating effect. The versatility of milk made it essential. A girl from a poor family could use the same ingredient as a wealthy patrician's daughter. The results might vary based on the quality of the milk, the freshness, the care taken in application, but the benefits were available to all. Honey was regarded by Roman women with an almost mystical reverence. They didn't just use it on their skin because it happened to work. They used it because they understood, on some intuitive level, that honey possessed properties unlike anything else nature offered. Honey is humectant, meaning it pulls moisture from the air and locks it into the skin. Honey is antimicrobial, antifungal, and has been proven to actually help skin heal. Ancient Romans didn't have chemistry to explain this, but they had observation. They saw honey heal wounds. They saw it clear up skin problems. They saw it make skin look plump, hydrated, and youthful. A maiden might apply raw honey directly to her face in the evening, spreading it in a thin layer, leaving it to absorb while she sat with a book or listened to music. 20 minutes later, she'd rinse it away with warm water, and her skin would be noticeably more supple. Or she might mix honey with other ingredients to create customized treatments. Honey and olive oil together created a deeply nourishing mask. Honey and rose water made a treatment that was both hydrating and astringent. Honey mixed with herbs created a poultice that addressed specific skin concerns. The most prized honey came from bees that had fed on specific flowers. Honey from bees that foraged on lavender had different properties than honey from bees feeding on wildflowers. Wealthy women collected different varieties and used them strategically, almost like a modern woman might have different serums for different concerns. A maiden suffering from breakouts might use honey sourced from particular regions known to be especially antimicrobial. Another struggling with dryness might choose honey known to be more moisturizing. Herbs were another frontier entirely in Roman skincare. The empire that controlled trade routes had access to plants from across the known world, and enterprising women learned which ones helped the skin. Chamomile was calming and anti-inflammatory. Used as a gentle infusion, it could reduce redness and soothe irritated skin. Lavender had antiseptic and healing properties. Dried lavender buds could be ground into fine powder and mixed with honey or oil to create treatments that smelled divine while actually healing the skin. Sage was used for its astringent properties, particularly by women with oily skin or breakouts. An infusion of sage applied in the evening could help regulate sebum production and prevent blemishes. Mint was cooling and refreshing, perfect for evening after a hot day. Myrtle was considered so effective for the skin that it was actually called an ingredient for facial preparations by Roman writers. Thyme had antimicrobial properties that helped prevent infection. Chamomile, lavender, sage, mint, myrtle, thyme, and dozens of other herbs were cultivated in Roman gardens, dried carefully, stored in clay containers, and brought out each evening as part of the skincare ritual. A woman with a garden had resources that money alone couldn't buy. She could experiment, could customize her treatments, could create something unique to her own skin's needs. Women without gardens purchased dried herbs from market vendors, paying extra for freshness and quality. The herb trade was brisk and competitive, with different merchants claiming to have the most potent varieties. Wine might seem like an odd skincare ingredient, but Roman women understood its benefits. Wine, particularly white wine, contained natural acids and antimicrobial compounds. A small amount of wine mixed with water created a gentle toning solution. Applied with soft cloths, it would help balance the skin's pH, tighten pores, and provide a subtle brightening effect. Some maidens splashed diluted wine on their face as a final rinse after cleansing, enjoying the slight tingle as the acids worked on the surface. The aroma was pleasant, the effect was real, and it was yet another ingredient that was affordable because wine was everywhere in Roman culture. A maiden might use the same cheap wine her family drank with dinner for her evening skincare. No waste, no separation between food and beauty. Everything served multiple purposes. The evening ritual often included a cleansing step that, while different from modern cleansing, served the same purpose. Roman women would sometimes use ash, yes, ash, to gently remove makeup and surface impurities. This sounds harsh to modern ears, but the ash they used wasn't from any random fire. It was carefully created, finely sifted ash that was soft enough to be gentle on skin. Mixed with water or oil, it created a paste that could be massaged gently across the face to lift away the heavy pigments and powders women had applied in the morning or afternoon. After the ash treatment came extensive rinsing with cool water, sometimes infused with herbs or flowers. The contrast between the gentle exfoliation of the ash and the cool water rinsing away what was left behind felt refreshing, clarifying. Once the face was clean, the actual skincare routine would begin. Some Roman maidens had access to clays, particularly from volcanic regions. Volcanic clay has naturally absorbent properties and minerals that are beneficial for skin. A maiden might create a mask using fine volcanic clay mixed with water, rose water, or milk. Applied once or twice a week in the evening, these masks would deep cleanse, tighten the skin, and leave it feeling incredibly smooth. The sensation of wearing a clay mask was transformative. The slight drying and tightening as it dried on the face created a feeling of renewal. When rinsed away with warm water, the skin beneath felt new, reborn. Rich women collected different clays from different regions. Understanding that clay from one volcanic source had slightly different properties than clay from another. The most prized clays came from far away, imported at great expense, used sparingly as luxurious weekly treatments. Almonds were another crucial ingredient in Roman skincare. Ground almonds mixed with milk, honey, or oil created a gentle but effective exfoliant. Almond oil, pressed from the nuts, provided deep nourishment. The skin contains lipids that are similar in composition to almond oil, which is why the oil is so readily absorbed. Women would massage almond oil into their skin in the evening, appreciating both the sensory experience and the genuine benefit. Almond milk, created by grinding almonds and mixing them with water, could be used as a cleansing liquid or as a mask ingredient. The proteins in almonds helped maintain skin elasticity. The oil helped prevent moisture loss. Almonds were nutritious enough to eat and luxurious enough to use on the skin. A woman with access to almond trees had a constant supply of skincare ingredients. The evening routine didn't always happen quickly. Sometimes a Roman maiden would spend an hour or more tending to her skin, trying different combinations, testing new ingredients, adjusting her approach based on how her skin responded. There was experimentation, creativity, and a genuine desire to understand her own skin's unique needs. She might try a honey mask on Monday, see how her skin felt, and adjust based on results. By Friday, she might use something different. This wasn't random. This was scientific observation applied without scientific language. Over time, a woman developed an intuition about what her skin needed. In winter, when the air was dry, she might use richer oils more frequently. In summer, she might rely more on astringent solutions like diluted wine or rosewater. If she had breakouts, she might increase her use of antimicrobial honey and herbs. If her skin was sensitive and red, she might focus on calming rosewater and milk. The constant adjustments meant that a woman's skincare routine was personalized in a way that modern commercial skincare, with its one-size-fits-all approach, often isn't. Perfume played a role, too, not just for fragrance but for skincare benefits. Many perfumes were created by soaking flowers or herbs in oils, creating infusions that were both beautiful smelling and genuinely beneficial for skin. A maiden might dab a tiny amount of expensive perfume on her cheeks, neck, and wrists as part of her evening routine. The oils in the perfume would provide moisture. The scent would uplift her mood. Certain flowers and herbs used in perfume creation were chosen specifically for their skin benefits. Jasmine oil, while primarily used for its intoxicating scent, also had benefits for skin elasticity and moisture. Sandalwood, popular in Roman perfumery, had antimicrobial properties and a lovely subtle effect on the skin. Rose oil, extracted through careful distillation, was both fragrant and incredibly beneficial for skin. These weren't accidents. Roman perfumers understood, possibly without articulating it in modern terms, that they were creating products that both smelled divine and worked magic on the skin. For eyes, which were central to Roman beauty standards, maidens used specific treatments. Eye makeup was removed carefully using oil, gently massaging away kohl and pigments. Some women made special eye oil by infusing it with chamomile or rose petals. After cleansing, they'd apply pure oil or eye cream made from honey and oil. The skin around the eyes would be patted gently to avoid wrinkles. Bags under the eyes were treated with cool compresses of milk or rose water. Wealthy maidens had access to treatments made from ground pearls mixed with oils. The eyes were a priority, as looking tired or aged around them was considered a serious beauty flaw. Women invested time and resources into keeping that delicate area glowing and youthful. The ritual of evening skincare in ancient Rome was more than just practical maintenance. It was meditation. It was self-love. It was a form of control in a world where women had limited control over their lives. A maiden couldn't control the political decisions of men in power. She couldn't control whom she would marry or what her future would hold. But she could control how her skin looked and felt. She could spend an evening experimenting with ingredients, discovering what made her skin feel best, what made her feel most beautiful. That agency, that sense of possibility and experimentation was profound. The evening skincare ritual was personal, intimate, and entirely hers. Some maidens kept records of what worked, scratching notes onto tablets or papyrus if they had access. Notes like, "Honey mask made skin glow but too tight. Try mixing with oil next time." Or, "Rose water alone, not enough for dryness. Need more oil." These were the first skincare journals, women analyzing their skin with curiosity and precision. Information about skincare traveled through networks of women, passed down through generations, refined and improved with each iteration. Some knowledge was closely guarded, particularly if it gave one woman an advantage in beauty competition. But much of it was shared freely among women who weren't rivals. Nighttime presented specific opportunities because women weren't leaving the house, weren't exposing their skin to sun and dust and the elements. They could use treatments that needed to be absorbed fully, that didn't need to leave the skin matte or perfectly polished for public appearance. Heavy oils, rich masks, intensive treatments could be applied and left on overnight. Some women would apply a thin layer of oil mixed with honey before bed and wake up to skin that felt incredibly soft and hydrated. The overnight recovery time allowed deep absorption. The absence of sun exposure meant less risk of damage from certain ingredients. The night was for serious skincare work. The day was for maintenance and protection. Water quality mattered too, something Roman women understood through experience, if not through chemistry. The mineral content of water varied from place to place. Some maidens had access to naturally soft water from pure springs, which was preferred for final rinses. Others had harder water and made adjustments, sometimes using rainwater collected carefully in clean vessels for the final rinse of the face. A woman without access to good water might use rose water or herb infusions for the final rinse, both for the skin benefits and to address the water quality issue. Nothing was wasted. Everything served multiple purposes. The luxury of evening skincare rituals meant not all women had equal access. Wealthiest maidens from patrician families might have servants creating their treatments and assisting with application. They had access to rare ingredients imported from across the empire, but even women with modest means could participate. Olive oil was universal. Water was available. Most herbs could be grown in gardens or purchased inexpensively. The ingredients weren't expensive by nature, only when they were rare or imported. Local ingredients were always affordable. Sometimes the evening skincare ritual was social. A maiden and her close friends or female relatives would gather in the evening and tend to their skin together. They'd share ingredients, trade tips, help each other apply masks or massage oils. These gatherings had an intimacy that was treasured. Women would talk about important things, share secrets, offer advice, and comfort. The skincare routine became a backdrop for connection. The act of caring for one's body became an act of caring for one's relationships. The morning after an intensive evening skincare session always brought validation. Waking up with skin that felt supple, looked brighter, and seemed more youthful was the reward. Not just aesthetic reward, though, that mattered, but the physical sensation of healthy skin, the feeling of having truly cared for oneself. Over time, consistent evening skincare would visibly change a woman's skin. Texture would improve. Tone would even out. That coveted glow would develop. Wrinkles, while inevitable, would develop more slowly. Fine lines would be less pronounced. The cumulative effect of years of careful, intentional skincare was significant. Roman women didn't have modern sunscreen or advanced anti-aging serums, but they understood that taking care of skin in the evening, supporting its natural repair and renewal processes, made a difference. They grasped that skin is a living organ that benefits from nourishment, protection, and attention. They understood that natural ingredients offer real benefits, and that skincare is self-care. They knew that beauty isn't about conforming to standards set by others, but about taking control of the one thing you can control, how you care for yourself. The legacy of Roman evening skincare lingers even today. The ingredients they relied on, the oils and flowers and herbs, are still the foundation of luxury skincare products. Companies charge premium prices for rose water, for almond oil, for honey, for the very same ingredients Roman women used freely. The ritualistic approach, the idea of taking time in the evening to tend to skin mindfully, is something modern women are rediscovering after decades of rushing through skincare in moments snatched between other obligations. The understanding that skincare should be customized to individual needs rather than a one-size-fits-all approach is becoming mainstream again. The concept of using natural ingredients rather than synthetic chemicals is becoming aspirational. In many ways, we are returning to what Roman women knew all along. Looking back at these ancient maidens mixing honey with rose water, massaging warm olive oil into their skin by lamplight, creating personalized treatments based on careful observation of their skin's needs, We're not looking at primitive beauty routines. We're looking at women who understood skincare at a fundamental level. Women who had agency in how they cared for their bodies. Women who took time for themselves and considered that time valuable. Women who knew that beauty isn't a luxury or a sin, but a form of self-expression and self-respect. The evening skincare rituals of Roman maidens were whispered promises to themselves, promises that they were worth the time, worth the care, worth the effort to feel and look their best. Every night, as they warmed olive oil between their palms, as they inhaled the scent of roses and herbs, as they felt their skin drink in moisture and nourishment, they were saying yes to themselves. They were choosing to be beautiful not for anyone else, but for themselves. That choice, that daily recommitment to caring for oneself, was perhaps the most revolutionary thing about Roman evening skincare. Because it meant a woman's beauty wasn't something she was born with or granted by fortune. It was something she created, night after night, with her own hands, from the gifts of nature. It was earned through dedication and intention. It was hers,